Hello, everyone, to yet another episode of the Student's Handbook podcast. I'm with a good friend of mine and another fellow intern at Fox Sports. He's a up-and-coming reporter, and he's formerly the youngest reporter for many soccer matches, and I'll let him dive into that. Welcome to the show, Andres.
Yeah, I don't want to kill your vibe right out of the gate, but funny enough, out of all the things I've done, reporting is not really one of them, believe it or not.
Okay, so tell me more.
Um, so I am more than anything, I mean, people talk a lot about like radio personality, TV personality. In general, I'd say that I'm a big personality. Again, that doesn't mean anything one way or the other. But for the most part, I'd say I'm a commentator, whether that's politics, that's sports. Um, Definitely, I've been an analyst in terms of color commentary for sports, and I've also done a lot of my own shows, both on TV and radio, and kind of gotten to do that all over the world, and on different continents, and it's been an incredible ride thus far. I'm still 20, and like you said, I had this handy, of course, because you know now at Fox Sports with you, you know, a little bit of a downgrade because I'm with you, but
Oh,
just
come
kidding.
on
But
now. Let's not do that.
just sorry. You'll catch a stray in the beginning, and then I'm done. But yeah, I think that it's just kind of been a lot of experimenting and trying to figure out where I might be suited. But honestly, looking into the next couple of years, honestly, reporting is looking like one of my most likely routes, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, because we talk about even at work we talk about being all in a talent and like the realities of those kinds of things. For those that don't know, Andres is one of the most like he'll say anything like whatever anything to spark up a conversation, controversial or not, and he's great at that, which is why he'll be a really good on-air talent. Um, but just going back to that to sort of like your upbringing in terms of this sort of career space, where did you start and how did you what have you done?
Yeah, so I started actually during COVID. I mean, I've always been a big talker. I've always, try to have a conversation about whatever needed to be talked about in that moment. It might be controversial. It might be something people are a little bit uncomfortable with, but I've always thought, let's have uncomfortable conversations. If you have an opinion, share it. Like again, people aren't lucky in other parts of the world to be able to speak freely, but being in the free world and in the capital of freedom, you know, say what
Yeah.
you want and let's have discussions and let's share our points of views. And I've always believed that. And, you know, I kind of, it really was a joke. I'm a big jokester. And I did this series on Instagram called This Week in Sports back during COVID when there was nothing going on. And funny enough that I say there was nothing going on sports wise, one of my first episodes was, "Hey guys, welcome to This Week in Sports, new series I've created, blah blah blah. What's going on? Nothing. There's nothing going on." And it was honestly, it was just a joke.
Mhm.
Like I was making fun of the fact that every sports league around the world, on every continent, every sport had canceled whatever they were doing. And that kind of became a little bit of a more serious thing when things started to pick up. So started to follow the news of, hey, when's this going to reopen? How are they going to go about reopening a certain league? And I started kind of doing the news that way. Um, then my mom actually encouraged me, said, "Hey, why don't you do, why don't you do the basketball commentary for school?" And I was like, sure, like why not? At first, I didn't really want to do it. I was like, I don't know if that's going to be my thing, like because
Yeah.
still being a soccer player, having played my whole life, I was always more like, I'm a soccer player and that's who I am. But you just realize there's not enough money there, at least for me, to make a
Yeah.
living off of that. So kind of had to look a different route and start doing basketball commentary, and that kind of um, led me to start doing other things in English. And before that, like um, the first thing I ever did was call a soccer game in Spanish to my grandma over the phone in Costa Rica. Um, and from there, like now it's taken off, and I do a lot of games through my own audio channels from El Maestro Media, which we'll get to later, doing Costa Rican soccer. And so that's become a big thing for me as I've continued to do stuff both in English and Spanish, and soon dropping soon big Chinese soccer podcast. Um, and
Okay.
that'll be very interesting as that's my third language. So I think just trying to get experiences and everything, and that's just kind of how I got started, and it's taken me to some really cool places, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I'm very thankful that my mom has pushed me, and that people gave me good feedback on hey dude, I've been really bored at home, and this week in sports series, like dude,
Yeah.
I got nothing to watch. Like I get sick of watching Netflix all day and playing Fortnite until 3 in the morning. Like this is cool, like cool content, and at the end of the day, it's all about the content.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been there, 3 a.m. Fortnite run, sometimes 6 a.m. I'm guilty of
If
that.
you haven't been there, you're lying. You're lying, or you're weird. But
That is true. That is true.
one
So,
one one or the other.
yeah. So when, like for me, and I know a lot of my viewers, when we think, sports analysts, commentators, on-air personalities, we're thinking the classic Shannon, Skip, Stephen A. Who are some of your idols that you particularly look up to and try to emulate?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like studio show type hosts, just getting to see Colin Coward around a lot, and Skip Bayless has said what's up to me a couple of times. Like seeing those guys. Sad he's leaving, but when I leave, everybody leaves with me. So I guess he just decided to walk out the door. Um, But I think all those guys are a really big inspiration. In terms of radio, I've gotten some Colin Coward comparisons, which means a lot to me, obviously, because he's, I think, the radio guy, sports radio guy in America.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think it's drawing a little bit from all those guys, but remembering there's one Stephen A. Smith, there's one Shannon Sharp, there's one Skip Bayless, there's one Colin Coward. You can't recreate that, and there's only one Andres Jaime-Mendez. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the reality, right? So I've always tried to, take my inspiration where I can, but always, remember that what's gonna make me me is being genuinely myself, because people have seen Stephen A. Smith before, and in 20 years they don't want to keep seeing Stephen A. Smith. They want to see
Mm.
someone else. Um, and so just be true to myself in that way, and then use my don't shy away, controversial style, and kind of take that forward. That's kind of my approach, I guess, my attitude towards it.
Yeah. So then going to that attitude standpoint, let's say you went up on TV, we're watching Andres perform. What is it that
Mm-hmm.
you'd wish your audience would know about you that isn't particularly shown on TV?
Oof. Well, I mean, to be honest, I think honestly, is my goal would be that my audience knows me so well that I mean, obviously there's details about my personal life and stuff. Like I don't need people to know my every move. That's, weird. Like people try to do with Taylor Swift, like, oh my God, is
That
she in
is
the house?
weird.
Oh my
That
God, is
is
she in her
weird as
chat? Oh
hell.
my, like,
Yeah.
okay, like that it gets to a point where it's like an unhealthy obsession. I don't want that, but I do want my audience to kind of, you know, I want to have real conversations and respond to comments, and engage with people in a way that they know who I am, the stuff that I believe, the things that I think, um, my interests outside of just sports and everything. Um, so I want people to know that. I think the secretive element, for some people it works, but for me, I really want to be different in the way that I don't want to hold back things. Obviously, I don't want to get in trouble with the FCC and get my company fined or whatever. But um, I don't want to cuss on live TV or anything like that. But I going back to the being true. I think I don't hold back a lot of the time. I try to think of myself as an open book. So I don't really want it to be like, oh, you don't know this about me, like figure it out. I think that approach, some people have had it, but that's not my style.
So go if you so obviously for the viewers that are like looking into the sort of line of work that you're into, what kind of advice would you give them? So like we're like the same age, right? So the advice you'd give
Yeah.
them would be absolutely relevant to what we're doing in today's line of work.
Yeah, I honestly think there's so much room for creativity now. I mean, I'm still figuring it out, of course. Like, again, like I'm 20. I have by no means figured it out. Um, but I just think as in general, again, and this is me being completely transparent and honest, I'm not typically the most flexible person. I like things, being done in a certain way, and when you figure something out, you stick with
We
it. If it
know.
ain't broke, don't fix it, right? We know. Shut up, Irvin. The people don't know. Um, but you do have to be flexible because it's changing like crazy. I mean, Al Michaels is no longer with NBC, but his voice is doing highlights for YouTube. Like what? And Peacock.
That is
What?
crazy.
Like his AI generated voice is doing highlights.
Hmm.
Um, things are being experimented with, they're being tried out, things are evolving. So I just think being flexible and kind of saying, number one thing is just putting yourself out there, building a resume, getting experiences, trying things out. Like you might do something. I've just loved being on air in every role that I've had. But I've learned I don't like production. I don't want to be a producer. I don't want to be a technical director. I don't want to be the camera person. I don't want to do that. That like I would rather not work in TV than do any of those jobs.
Sure.
Um, but that's something that I've only learned because I've gotten to do those jobs. Um, and I think when you get that experience, you start realizing what you like, what you don't like. So doing that, and then of course, being flexible and just putting yourself out there, and not only in terms of building a resume and sending it to people, but reaching out and saying, "Hey, I want to learn about you. Like, give me 10 minutes of your time," or well, don't say give me, but like, can I have 10 minutes of your time? It's a bit aggressive. Give me 10 minutes. Mm.
You know,
Um,
you know, you know,
but
you know,
just
that conversation sounds awfully a lot like the one we had like 2 hours ago, Andres.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, what do they say? Great minds think alike. Is that what they say?
I don't know. We were kind of sitting at
I
the same
think something
table
like that.
talking about the exact same thing. Because Shlomi asked me that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The reason he didn't ask me that is because he had already asked me that previously. And I didn't do the honestly, giving a specific time frame is good sometimes for people when you're reaching out to them. Sometimes no, sometimes hey, just want a little bit of your time. And
Yeah,
regardless if you say 10 minutes or a little bit, at the end of the day, they're gonna decide because they can be like, hey, sorry, I just got another meeting, like I gotta go.
yeah.
But overall, just sending people stuff. Like I have a lot of great mentors that, I'll commentate a game and I'll be like, hey, what do you think? What can I do better? What did you like? Um, and there's so many things. I mean, I just posted a couple TikToks. Like, I'm getting my company social media on different platforms um, underway. So there's tons of things that um, are available now. Just honestly, more platforms than I ever thought there would be, where
Yeah.
you can post things, whether it's a link tree, a YouTube, a TikTok, a Snapchat, an Instagram, a Vimeo. Like, there's just all these platforms, even LinkedIn, just showing people your work on LinkedIn and connecting with people that might want to see it. That's, I think, the route that it's going, but it's very complicated because you don't know where it's going. I don't know where it's going. Eric Shanks doesn't know where it's going. Um,
You might have a better idea than we do.
No, 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 he
You don't
doesn't,
think
and
so?
that's something that I firmly believe. No, 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 because nobody knows. Because at the end of the day, who drives the revenue? That's what the thing you have to remember is. It's always about the audience. You can think it's about you, but it's always about the
No.
audience.
It's
Because
always
if
about
your
the audience.
audience
Yeah.
doesn't respond favorably to what you do, and if all of a sudden, I mean, everything is a trend now. So the thing is, why I say be flexible is because it could become a trend over a longer period of time that people don't want to see halftime shows. I'm just throwing something random out there. The people are like, halftime shows are so boring. Like, put on a different type of programming during halftime. Like, I just watched the whole first half. Like, I don't want to watch the halftime show. Or I can look at the halftime, or I can look at the highlights on Twitter. And maybe that's a trend that happens. And again, like I said, we don't know that because even though we're part of the audience at a certain point, we don't know how it's going to change. And that's a
Yeah.
thing that like Eric Shanks can't predict that. We can't predict that. Not a single person can predict what the trends and how things are going to be in the future. There's people that think that AI is going to take over the industry. There's people like me that say never going to replace it. It could be a balance. It could take over. It could just completely fail. We don't know.
Yeah. I think it would be a healthy balance because it's hard to produce media, digital things without that human touch, especially if you're showing it to viewers that are human, right? So it has to be a
Yeah.
healthy balance. I mean, something like voiceovers, for example, it's a fine line because sometimes if you get AI to read something, it reads it kind of weirdly. You know what I mean? So like there's
Yeah,
certain there's
exactly.
certain emotions and there's certain things that AI can't touch, but then there's also things that AI can do a lot more efficient than we can, you know. But
Mhm.
going back to the progression state of it, I like to call our generation the age of consumption because all we do is scroll, scroll, scroll. We have, like you said, we have
Yeah.
so many media platforms, but I would confidently say, there's probably 5% that are using the technology in the best way possible. Because
Hmm.
because how it goes is that we're consuming, but the 5% that are putting things out are the ones that are succeeding because everyone's
Exactly.
consuming. So if you want to be the successful one, you got to put things out for them to consume.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we were talking a little bit about how do you become viral on TikTok? How do you do better on Reels? And it's like certain. I mean, people. I mean, have you seen, for example, salt transition guy? He does like he has like a plate of food and he like sprinkles
Oh
pepper and
yeah,
it
yeah,
turns
yeah, yeah.
into a
And then
mountain.
he goes like, yeah,
Like
yeah,
those videos are unbelievable. So yeah, of course, everyone who saw that was like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen." And that guy, like in terms of video transitions, that guy rules TikTok and Instagram and everything because again, it's all about content, and his content's the best because nobody has been able to edit like that guy. And he was the first one to do it, and now there can be copycats and stuff, but you know it's unbelievable because, like you said, the big players end up controlling it. Much like a little bit of what we're seeing in the media space because podcasting took off, right? Took off. But the big podcasts are who? Big name.
yeah, sure, yeah,
And there's other names that rise through, but at the end of the day, you see the Bobby Altoffs and the Dave Portnoys and the Jake Pauls and Mike Malaya or whatever his name is, Malaki Jack, um, Mike Flapjack, whatever the hell his name is. Um, Lana Rhodes, baby daddy, whatever. But like you see those podcasts and the Joe Rogans of the world, and those are the people that are running the industry right now.
hmm
That's not to say that other podcasts can't rise, but there's just an incredible amount of content out there, and like you said, and something that I put in my reflection video is when I look at this, and when any of us look at the our phone, our attention span is even shorter than we want to admit.
yeah,
It
that's
just
true.
is. If you send me some video and it's just this really long intro, I don't care if it comes from you or from my dad or from my grandma. I will stop watching because I lost interest. And that's how it works. Like people just watching, no, scroll, reels, tapping, going through YouTube videos, they click out, that's just how it is. Um, and I think it's a very, very weird age to be in. Just because nobody has the answers. We just don't.
That's true. How would you say what is the most common route for someone that kind of wants to do what you're doing?
Oof. I mean, first of all, I'll say that the common route is one that I don't want to take because I've always said that how do you achieve things that no one has ever achieved by doing things that no one has ever done? That's always been my belief. Because if you don't you try the same route as everybody else, and it's gotten them to a certain point. Like if you want to be a local reporter, for example, or local, sports anchor, whatever, you get involved in your college station, you make a reel, you send it out to different stations, and maybe you end up in Wichita, Kansas as, a sports anchor on the weekends or um, whatever it may be, and you get a role there. And that's kind of been the traditional thing for like if you want to be an American sports anchor, like you start up there, and maybe after a while you move to a bigger market, because that's just how America works. Like we just have different TV markets. The biggest being New York, and then Los Angeles and Miami after. But there's so many cities in the United States, and think about it, every city usually has a couple stations,
Hmm.
um, and they need sports anchors and stuff. So you go to school again, you get involved with your university TV or radio station, and then you go to those stations, and you climb the ladder, and that's kind of the traditional path, which for some people might work. You know, maybe I bet you there's people that want to experience different parts of the country and different roles and kind of grow and learn and like make sure that when they get to like a network level, that they're ready. Um, and I think it just comes down to getting repetitions. You don't necessarily have to be at a local market, small market. I don't someplace in Oregon. Um, for that long if you really have the level and already have been there for a certain number of years, and you've already gotten to the level where you've achieved everything you need to achieve there, and you can move on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the route that I've learned, um, and from people's stories. But there's incredible jumps that people have, um, and it at the end of the day, it is all about experience. It's about how many repetitions you've done. It's like I'm sure you've heard of the 10,000 hours of practice,
Yeah.
to become a pro. Like anything, that's just how it works. Funny enough, I just got a text uh, from a very well-known broadcaster. I won't say, but just cool that you know you get in contact with these people, right? And you meet them, and it's kind of again, this is one of the people that I'm talking about, the big jumps, um, that you the typical route for a sports broadcaster. Let's say now we talked a little bit of anchor, reporter, but if you want to actually do the games, either be a color commentator, analyst, or a play-by-play guy,
Hmm.
um, again, start in a small market. Maybe start calling single A baseball. And the hours are really bad, and the travel is really tough. I was
You got to
talking
start somewhere,
to
no?
um, this one. No, no, and that's what people say. And the thing is, it's like, yeah, but there's different somewheres. You know what I mean? Like, there's been people that have pitched me ideas of going to the absolute middle of nowhere and reporting from there, and it's like that's not the life that I want. You know what I mean? That's but I think that's the question that people have to ask themselves. Do you have the dream of just doing the job and it doesn't matter? You love it so much that it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in Corvallis, Oregon. You can be in Wichita, Kansas. You can be in Corpus Christi, Texas. You can be in South Dakota, and it doesn't matter where you are and you're happy. Or would you rather be in, maybe a little bit more of a city? Maybe it's a bigger station but a smaller role, and it's just, do you want to go from single A to then maybe double A to maybe a summer league, the Cape Cod League, and call all these random baseball games or basketball games or whatever, or do you want to go somewhere else and have a little bit of a different route?
Hmm.
And that broadcaster just messaged me, went straight to a big time team in a major league, very quickly, right out of college, and it was because he had all of that experience from college and other jobs that he had worked, so he was ready. So you don't always need to take the route that people tell you to. I firmly believe that everything you hear from people, whether it's negative, positive, a criticism, a compliment, it all serves a purpose one way or another. Um, and you don't have to take it and run with it necessarily. So
Hmm.
just because I say something, dude, doesn't mean you have to listen. But
Yeah.
I always try to take in what people are saying and then think to myself, does that make sense? Does that align with what I want to accomplish or what I want to do? And if it does or it doesn't, maybe you reevaluate and you think about it a little bit. But I think it's all just food for thought, and they're all really suggestions at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing that a lot of people, it holds them back when people they say you can't do something, right? A lot of people get held back, and I've never understood it because I've never cared what people say, but I know that it's an issue and a problem with a lot of people, especially when they dream big. Whether it's like their
Yeah,
parents, sometimes it is their parents, and that's really hard to go against. But other times it's quite literally just other people that aren't even associated with them, and then when they hear that, they kind of shy away from it, and then suddenly they end up going a different route and they're 5 years behind now. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, that's just something that I wish people knew, just sort of just don't,
yeah,
it doesn't matter, just do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, like I said, like you don't necessarily have to listen to it, but it might be a thing of like, for example, I kind of figured this, but um, the other day when Jacob was like, for you, even though you might have a good, analysis capability as a color commentator, and I've done it in other leagues, for a lot of the major broadcasts, they're looking for the best former players that are available, which honestly is not something that I agree with because the best players aren't always the best coaches.
But they
The
bring the
best
views.
players aren't always the best analysts. And again, that's the thing when it's a certain model and it's driven by viewership and ratings like that. That's what ends up happening. But you know, as someone who is not going to play pro at an extremely high level, I can't really compete with someone that's played in multiple World Cups and won X and X championship and been
Hmm.
in such and such league. It's just not um, as easy or simple around the card. So again, that's one of those examples of like, okay, if my dream is really like, no, 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 I'm an analyst, I'm an analyst, I'm an analyst. I have to think to myself, well, but I'm not as likely to get hired in those roles when compared to former pro players. So
Yeah.
that's just something again, you just have to stop and reconsider for a moment. It's like, what is my route? Where do I want to be? How soon do I want to be there? And kind of who are the people I need to talk to make my realization. I mean, you heard what my dream is today. Um, I want to be back with Fox or Telemundo in Spanish, like for the 2026 World Cup. That's my goal.
Hmm.
Um, and so for me, it's about getting in at Telemundo, getting in at Fox, and hopefully that leads to opportunities for the World Cup. Um, and talking to the right people and doing things that way. So I think
Yeah.
that's what people really need to evaluate.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, on a lot of my episodes, we talk about the importance of like people, right? The relationships you have and all that. When have your relationship helped you out to make a major step?
Ooh, I think at every single point. I don't think it's ever stopped. I mean, from the beginning, the first people that I ever talked to, um, that were in media, the first people that were like that told me, "Hey, man, like you might have a future in broadcasting. Like, if this is what you want to do, look at such and such school." Um, and those schools ended up offering me incredible scholarships and opportunities, and now being at University of Miami at one of the best broadcast journalism schools in the country. I always remember it was among the first people that heard me commentate that were like go through one of these programs, learn, absorb the resources, take that all in. Because that at the end of the day is, you look at some of the best broadcasters, and that's where they come from. They come from those schools. Um, and I think everyone that's helped me from the phone calls and the emails and everything, I would say 98% of the people that I've reached out to, one, I'm still in contact with them to this day, and they help me with advice and they recommend me and they give me, I mean, incredible, I guess, kind of presentations, other people introducing me to others. Um, Obviously there's the small percentage, and I think this goes for any field, that people that don't get back to you, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't really help you, or, whatever it may be. But uh, I really haven't experienced that, because everyone knows how hard it is, especially in sports.
Yeah.
What's the one line everybody says? I want to work in sports. Everybody says that. Everybody wants to work in sports if they could. Sometimes they don't even know what that means, don't know what being on air is or something. So, a lot of these people that help, I always think about that. Like, think about how many people probably reach out, and think about how much time they probably spend helping people. But they do it because they know that it was difficult for them and other people did it. And one of my best mentors has always said, because I told him, thank you, thank you for believing in me, for, inviting me, for always guiding me and everything. And he said, listen, I do this because people helped me, because I know what it's like to be in your position, and people helped me along the way. And the only thing that I can hope is that I help you, and then
Hmm.
you help the next generation of people
Yeah.
that will come after you, and fill your shoes in the end. So I really do think that, again, it's all about, and here's one of my quotes that I like. Woo, quotes. Um, which is my own original quote.
All right.
People say, "Oh, it's about who you know." Wrong, wrong. It's about who knows you. Because the thing is, you can know who someone is, you can reach out to them, right? But at the end of the day, if that person can say, "Hey, I know this kid," and give you a recommendation, "Hey, I know such and such person. I've worked with them. I've mentored them for a long time. They're incredible. They're hardworking. They want to make it big. They want to be the best." Um, Things like that. That's what moves the needle, what
Yeah.
threads the needle. And I have had that happen thanks to all the incredible people in my life, at every step, from when I started when I was 15, 16 until now, um, to get to Fox. At every step, um, someone of of the connections, within the connections that I have, has helped me to take that next step.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do agree with that. It's who knows you. But I mean, I feel like that's looking at it from like an extreme, like it's quite literal sense. I mean, if someone says it's who you, like I say that a lot, it's who you know, but that obviously does mean it's who you knows you. Like it's just like me saying that, but it's kind of like with the same sort of same meaning. You know what I mean?
You Sorry, if I heard you correctly, just making sure it's come through my AirPods right. You said, "Thanks, Andres. That was a fantastic quote. I really love that. I'm gonna think
I
about that
liked
and
it. I
use that a
liked
lot."
it.
That's what you said, right?
No, 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 not at all. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, good stuff. Looking past this internship, you're going to Paris, dude.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
crazy.
indeed.
Oh, what are you gonna
Yeah.
cover? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna do some sightseeing? What are you gonna do?
Oh, I mean, there will be a little bit of time for sightseeing. I mean, as you saw in some of the Euro coverage and everything, like, yeah, you get out a little bit and you see a couple of sites. And the one thing I'm excited for is the food breaks, in
Ooh.
between events, because I'm doing women's soccer, beach volleyball, table tennis, swimming, gymnastics, and track and field.
Do you know the
Um,
table tennis rules?
I mean, there's a lot I have to catch up on. Um, even in gymnastics, just learning a little bit how. Thankfully, I have some very very good gymnastics advisors, former high level gymnasts, international gymnasts that are kind of helping me with, hey, this is what you need to know. This is what judges are looking at. Because sometimes I could be like, okay, they messed up there, but I don't really know, like, kind of what.
Yeah.
So I that's the beauty of the Olympics, and again, getting this opportunity, and having financial backing for years now. Um, getting to go to Qatar again was something that was an incredible international experience to be on the ground covering. I mean, that's everybody's dream, right? Um, that's everybody's dream, and I lived it at 18. I'm going to live it again at 20. Um, it's special. I mean, not a second goes by, a day goes by where I'm not thankful that I get to have that opportunity, and I know how blessed I am. So it's very exciting to get all those sports that, dude, when else am I gonna cover table tennis? I'll tell you right now, never. Like I'll cover it at the Olympics and that's about it. Like that's the only time. Like same thing with gymnastics. I'm not gonna cover gymnastics, in a regular year. Um, but I think that's part of the special things that the Olympics bring. This will be my first Olympics that I go to. So, just to do it, for my own company with the whole, new branding that we have and getting to roll out everything and having my manager and producers and coordinators and everybody that's helping me around me. I mean, I just couldn't be more thankful, and it's gonna be very fun. It's gonna be a full party. I mean, the World Cup is surely a party that revolves around only one sport, which is wild when you think about it, that it's as big as it is.
Mhm.
But the Olympics is right there next to it. So it's gonna be a party with people from all over the world, and I mean, for me, that's what life is about.
Yeah.
You get to meet people from the London under. You get to meet people from Costa Rica. You get to meet people, from Iceland, from Africa. All these places. I mean, I can't wait. I cannot wait to see Jamaican sprinters in action. That's always been something, and I'm like, dude, to get to see Jamaican sprinters. I mean, there's few better athletes in the world and better programs to develop athletes than Jamaican sprinting. Even though people think that Jamaican bobsledding is is because obviously because of cool runnings, but um, I think there's few things that will ever happen in my life than getting to cover the Olympics for my own company. I mean, for me, that's a life goal achieved right there. When you talk about like the trajectory and where you want to go and what you want to do in your life, there's one. Check it
Yeah.
off. I mean, work for yourself and get to cover and hopefully our content does really well on socials. Um, so that is I think the ultimate goal. I would think from really anybody's point of view to get to work for yourself and be at the biggest events, that should be, I guess,
Yeah.
anybody's goal.
Yeah, man, I think it's particularly impressive that you do have your own company in the same way like with me and Zon Industries. By the way, merch is right here if you guys want it, tap in.
Am I getting a courtesy shirt?
We'll talk about this after the show.
Okay, not
We'll
on the
talk
air.
about it
Fair,
after
fair,
the
fair,
show.
fair.
I mean, we don't do business on camera. We know that. Come on now. Um, tell me a little bit about why you decided to start your own thing. How you started, what it took, and kind of like how you got to being able to go to the freaking Olympics.
Yeah, I think it's always been a dream of mine. Um, I've always thought that, and we start to see that now. I've always believed in myself that, at one point I thought I was going to be one of the big soccer players in the world, but now I think I can be one of the biggest media personalities in the world, um, and ever. And I think having that, obviously, there's no bigger goal than being the biggest, but I think having that goal started with, okay, but how do I go about it? Well, here's the thing. I want to create a brand, but who is the brand? What is the brand? And eventually I thought like there's two routes to go with it. One is of course I am the brand. And it's like, yeah, of course, like Stephen A. Smith, the Stephen A. Smith show, Stephen A. Smith Productions, whatever. All the big names now have their own production companies and their own like personal shows, and they are their own brand. But going beyond that and kind of branding it for something that I'm known for, one of my nicknames from soccer, El Maestro, and starting to
Why do they
branch
call
out.
you that?
Why?
Why do they call you that? Yeah.
I'm known on the soccer field for my accuracy on my passes, and typically I've always played in the midfield. And there's always been a saying, the midfield maestro. And so I just started being called maestro, and then it just kind of stuck, and I ran with it. I mean, when some people, I was like, I'm a maestro, just so you know, just so you know, just so you know. People have called me it before. I'm a maestro. Hello, hello. Um, right. I took it and ran with it. Um, and creating that brand, but also focusing on, a lot of the stuff that is like behind the scenes, and not because, this is kind of our first launch, but it's not, even though it will feel at some points like, it's the peak of it. I think it can be, really big, hopefully, and it goes along with my own personal success. But I do want to see it do well, and I think from the beginning, the vision that I've had, that I shared with people that have invested in me, and really put their trust. I mean, that I've just said, you know what, I trust this guy. Let's see where it goes. And I can't ask for much more than that to the people that manage me, and produce for me, and help me to organize and get me information. Uh, it's unbelievable to me, and just to, I think it's just been the support on support, but again, results, um, from myself to really say, hey, I'm going to be successful. I'm doing well. The company's going to do well. We're going to put a good content out there. Like, we're going to go to the biggest events, and people believe in the vision, and hopefully people continue to believe in the vision. And I continue to grow. The company continues to grow, and just continue up and up and up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're gonna end it on two final questions, Andres. Two final questions. First one you answered yesterday, but I want to ask it again. What motivates you? And
Uh-huh.
the second one is where will we see Andres in 10 years?
I think firstly, what motivates me is, again, it's the thought. It's thought, I think, is what motivates me. Um, because what I imagine has never been done before. So I just imagine being one of those figures that people look at for generations and generations to come, and just kind of imagining myself, wow, 300 years from now, people will still be learning about what I did and the impact I had on the world, and the things I said, the things I did.
Yeah.
That's what motivates me to keep going, because ultimately you get one life, and if you don't take advantage of it, uh, and of the opportunities you're handed or that you receive, you're only doing yourself a disservice, because you don't get it back. You don't get any moment back. You don't get any day back. You don't get any time back. Um, so when you really start to scale it down, you realize how valuable everything is, every breathing moment. So I just think about, you know, I want to be one of the greatest to ever do it, the greatest ever to do it, and that motivates me to every day, get up and take advantage of every moment of the day, and to continue just grinding and working on my craft and getting better. People say 1% better every day. I say, why only one? Why not 2% better every day? Why not three? Like, a lot of people are like, hey, 1% better every day. I'm like, that's great for you. I'm gonna go 2% better every day. And what
Absolutely.
about 3%? So I just don't think I want to set any limits on myself and set myself for the ultimate goal. No, because eventually, who's to say that the greatest now, who people regard as the greatest now, will be the greatest then? And
Sure.
we just, again, we don't know how things will evolve. And the other thing, of in 10 years, I think that, I personally predict and hope and pray, that I'll have one of the biggest rises, and that in 10 years I am one of the biggest voices. And again, just like the people that have invested in me and believed in me and trusted me, that the audience trusts me, that people, can see that they feel comfortable having a conversation with me, that they feel comfortable, being around and sharing things with me, both as, just overall a media personality and just as a person. And that people are entertained. And I think, at the end of the day, people don't want to say it. But it's the truth that news, journalism, sports media, blah 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 blah. Forget all that. It's all entertainment. All entertainment. Even certain news stories that might be, that probably should be relevant, they're not, because they're not entertaining, because people, they have a lot of stuff going on around them, and this provides entertainment. This was built not for people to have a use out of it. Originally it was, but now it's just so you can entertain yourself, so you can be on different platforms and just keep yourself busy. And I think that I just want to become one of the biggest voices, if not the biggest voice in entertainment, whether that's politics, news, sports, podcasts, shows, whatever you want to do. I just want to be able to do it and be able to entertain people, and just be a spot in someone's day when they go, hey man, let's go watch Andres right now. Let's go watch. That's ultimately the dream, and the more people that think like that, I think the happier I will be.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you for your time. Do you want to do the closing? Do you get into character and do the closing for the show? I want to hear it. So you don't forget the whole like, subscribe part, and then give your credentials, follow me on Instagram. I want to hear it. I want to hear Andres in character. Maybe the fans want to hear it. The audience want to hear it. The floor is
Let's
yours.
see. Well, I mean, you gave me a lot of room to work with. So, well, the student's handbook. I mean, every student's had a handbook, right? You got to read it. You got to learn from it. Zon Industries, Earvin Dizon. I'm Andres Jaime-Mendez at Andres JM3 on Instagram, at El Maestro Media on Instagram as well, and at Andres Jaime-Mendez, that being my media account for TikTok as well, and at Andres JM3 _ on Twitter. We're everywhere, people. We're everywhere. We're trying to be everywhere. That's the goal. That was the Student's Handbook. I don't know what episode are you on now. You know? I
I
hope
think
you
it's
know.
5. Yeah, it should be 5.
Okay.
Four
There we
or
go.
5. Yeah, one of them.
So yeah,
All right.
getting stuff off the ground, and it's a pleasure for me to always come on and have these in-depth conversations. So thank you for having me. Thank you for, again, this is trust. I believe that all these things come down to trust, because it's at the end of the day, like, I don't trust that this guy's going to say anything interesting, anything useful.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have me on, and if I didn't trust that you can ask good questions and have good insights and think deeply within the Dizon mind, then I would probably be like, hey, Irv, it's nice working with you, but I think I'm gonna go home. But
Yeah.
here I am home, and
There
I'm
you
on
go.
Student's Handbook
I'm gonna end
because
this
we love to
recording.
see it.